Hello, and welcome back to part 2 of an episode of CHAOSScast, the Chaos Community Podcast. On this panel, we have our amazing returning guests today. If y'all want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hedan Zeng, and I'm the Director of Product Management at Common Room, where I work with a lot of amazing organizations to help them understand within their community what is the health of their community metrics-wise, as well as business outcome-wise, as well as work on a lot of the intelligence layers within Common Room.
Dear listener, that back does mean that this is indeed a part 2 to the conversation. So in this episode, we're going to be focusing a lot on the nitty-gritty. So I would like to kind of go off to the races. Can you just give us a very brief description of what Common Room, the platform, actually does?
Yeah, absolutely. So Common Room is an intelligent community growth platform. So what that means is we give companies a complete view of who is in their community, what are the conversations taking place in a community, and we apply an intelligence layer so that you get a unified profile of all the individuals within your community. You understand what matters the most to your users within your community topics-wise, as well as just general metrics around overall community health. And we also give you tools to be able to take action on it.
What kind of things have you found valuable for your customers to look at?
So when we think about engagement, it is like really just a bundle of metrics as a starting point is important. Where is someone a part of a community source or not? How many community sources are they a part of? Essentially, the more involved they are, the better. But then over time, there are, of course, ebbs and flows in terms of how involved someone is. I would say engagement metrics is simply just at the surface level. Hey, like, are people engaging? How many channels are they engaging with? What we've heard from customers is it can be a little bit overwhelming, honestly, to be able to measure engagement across channels. Hence, that was the origination of Common Room's impact points metric, which gives you that single view of, hey, like within my community, like this is a view of all of my different members, how engaged / active / impactful they are. And so what there is, of course, like what can I do as a community leader to continue to foster that level of continued engagement? But like, why would people continue to be engaged? Why would they want to continue to be involved within the community? That's where I think there is a big component around conversation level metrics. How healthy are the conversations taking place within the community? So what is the sentiment associated with perhaps some of the conversations going on? So, but then topics as well, topics within Common Room, as well as what we call categories. Let's say I see a bunch of people talking about my recent release, and it's with perhaps not so positive sentiment. That could be an area that I look into a little bit more and notice perhaps like reports of product bugs, product complaints, and take very quick action to rectify.
So there's been this discussion of the structured community, which has specific boundaries, and it's you owning the space, you owning the conversation that a community is happening. And Common Room's philosophy is saying, well, that's not necessarily the case because people are using on average 5 to 7 different platforms to engage in what a single organization might consider a community. So we have to go out to all of these different areas. We call them grapevine or unstructured community spaces. How do you tackle these different sentiment developments in the actual metrics path and data flow for your system?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question, Benya. Tying back to my point earlier about baselines, it is really so dependent on whatever sources you're bringing in. When it comes to establishing that baseline, it is going to look a little bit different from community to community. So it helps to be able to establish that baseline for yourself over the matter of several weeks or so. A good example is one of our open source companies had released another version. And so then they dove into categories within Common Room. So they were then diving into, hey, when people were talking about X product version, were they expressing product appreciation? Were they perhaps asking for help in terms of a product question? Were they complaining? Hopefully they were not complaining, but essentially making it a lot more actionable. So what we see with OSS communities is essentially a greater focus on almost like those support use cases of, yeah, sure, sentiment is important, but I want to dig into the nitty gritty of what are people talking about and what kind of intent are they expressing so that I can take very quick action, either internally or externally on take destination.
And I'm curious how Common Room sort of addresses the nuance between these personas that, while they might have some overlap, tend to have different orientations.
I like that you brought up this idea of overlap because I think that is a little bit at the heart of how different companies approach it. In one particular case, there was a Slack channel used maybe for business users and then a Discord community for more of the developer users, showing it in a single place, but being able to have the different teams tag team, if you will, so that they can see each other's stuff, but for context, but then also focus on their own particular views. So especially for some of these larger companies where their contributors are completely siloed from perhaps the day-to-day users. In those cases, what we have seen is those teams will want to have their own, what we call different rooms.
There's different types of value and different ways that we can try to get at that from metrics perspectives. What are some specific metrics to understand these different pieces that you have seen being used?
I think a lot of community managers, especially in this day and age with the economy, they're often under fire. The tie to overall business value, I think that's like the kind of sometimes the tension that is felt between them and their stakeholders sometimes. Like fundamentally, it's about those conversational metrics, which are a barometer for essentially day to day, how people are responding to the conversations in your community, what value they're getting out of the conversations. That is, if anything, a leading indicator for showing like or impacting member growth. There are also, I would say, offline studies that we've done for some customers where we've seen a 2 to 3x actually correlation when it comes to people being engaged in the community, people being part of an advocacy program, and the tie-in to the usage of the product and ultimately even revenue.
One of the hard problems that we've seen is trying to actively predict things like burnout and lack or declining engagement for reasons that could be burnout versus just you're ready to leave a community and do something else. So if there were some sort of tool where we could proactively see where that risk is starting to emerge, then community leaders can be more proactive. And I'm curious, has that case come up for Common Room customers?
Good question. So within Common Room, we do surface sentiment at a member level, and you're able to filter it, say, like over time. And so you are able to detect someone's individual sentiment, perhaps like in the past 28 days versus the last 7 days versus perhaps the past year. So what we've heard is just like one recurring theme is just around this idea of everybody kind of wants to contribute in the way that they're used to. Not everybody wants to be part of a champion or an advocacy program, but that doesn't mean that within open source, we should just say, shunt those people off to the side. It's about finding kind of the right ways to engage those people. So one of the things that we like to focus on is this idea of recently inactive. So if someone is recently inactive, as a community leader, reaching out to them and perhaps getting context as to why.
I feel like there's just so much attention being placed toward the ethics of this data use, using user experience design, training methodology, how you build your dashboards in your website, how you allow people to interface with the data. So I was wondering if we could focus a little bit on the data visualization part then and ask how your user experience makes decisions about the metrics and the way that you visualize this data in your platform.
There's just so much data. I think that's undeniable in terms of what we can report on so many different things, and we can show a million things within our platform. But also, if you show everything, are you really just showing nothing? One of the other values at Common Room is this concept of striving for simplicity. We are big believers in showing you kind of that 80% view, first and foremost within the platform of the things that most people would care about the most. But then we allow for power users or users who perhaps are feeling really curious one day. We want to give them the tools to really grok the data because it is their data.
Hello, and welcome back to part 2 of an episode of CHAOSScast, the Chaos Community Podcast. On this panel, we have our amazing returning guests today. If y'all want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hedan Zeng, and I'm the Director of Product Management at Common Room, where I work with a lot of amazing organizations to help them understand within their community what is the health of their community metrics-wise, as well as business outcome-wise, as well as work on a lot of the intelligence layers within Common Room.
Dear listener, that back does mean that this is indeed a part 2 to the conversation. So in this episode, we're going to be focusing a lot on the nitty gritty. So I would like to kind of go off to the races. Can you just give us a very brief description of what Common Room, the platform, actually does?
Yeah, absolutely. So Common Room is an intelligent community growth platform. So what that means is we give companies a complete view of who is in their community, what are the conversations taking place.
Hello, and welcome back to part 2 of an episode of CHAOSScast, the Chaos Community Podcast. On this panel, we have our amazing returning guests today. If y'all want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hedan Zeng, and I'm the Director of Product Management at Common Room, where I work with a lot of amazing organizations to help them understand within their community what is the health of their community metrics-wise, as well as business outcome-wise, as well as work on a lot of the intelligence layers within Common Room.
Dear listener, that back does mean that this is indeed a part 2 to the conversation. So in this episode, we're going to be focusing a lot on the nitty gritty. So I would like to kind of go off to the races. Can you just give us a very brief description of what Common Room, the platform, actually does?
Yeah, absolutely. So Common Room is an intelligent community growth platform. So what that means is we give companies a complete view of who is in their community, what are the conversations taking place in a community, and we apply an intelligence layer so that you get a unified profile of all the individuals within your community. You understand what matters the most to your users within your community topics-wise, as well as just general metrics around overall community health. And we also give you